Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. I hope your July 4th Independence 250 Day was absolutely outstanding. We've got some updates to attend to today. We've got the Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing, which is happening right now and all week long. And we're going to hit the updates, the most substantive things that happened here. I know there are many other people live streaming it in its entirety. But we'll get to the meat and potatoes of exactly what's going on. And today, there was some very interesting testimony about the line of sight. We had a question, of course, about how could Tyler Robinson, who is up on top of a building, see Charlie Kirk, who's down in a pit below, when there's a tent over him? Did the bullet go down and under the tent and hit him in the neck? But we got some testimony about that today, and I've got a diagram that we charted out here that we can run through to see exactly how the whole thing can happen. So we'll go through some of the most recent updates and keep our eye on exactly who's testifying. As we know, we'll learn more about a preliminary hearing, what the standards are, and we'll see exactly what happened today. Then we got some big Graham Platner news. You might say that Graham Platner is screwed or did some of that bad activity, feeling very Eric Swalwell-y, and may be done and out of the race. He's got even people in his own Discord chat who were explaining it's time for him to call it quits because of the allegations here, which just dropped from Politico. Apparently, he's canceled a bunch of campaign events, and it might be the end of the road for him. Now, there's still time for the Democrats to swap him out with somebody better, but he had a lot of energy behind him from the main left-wing base of the party, and so that may be coming to a close. So another horrific story. We've got that to talk about, and then, of course, we'll hear from you. It's a beautiful Monday. It's a somber day. We all miss Charlie Kirk, and these cases are very difficult to talk about, but we're going to make sure that we attend to the matter to show what the evidence that's being presented ultimately says and see if we can help make sense of exactly what's going down. So we're very glad that you're here and with us. Thank you for joining and subscribing and all the things. Let's make sure the tubes are working and connecting across the fruited plain of the interwebs. And we're not stuttering or dropping off. That's good news. So it's all underway right now. And so let's get into it, starting with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, preliminary hearing underway as we speak. We've got a day one recap on the most substantive updates from testimony that was presented in court today. Now, of course, a preliminary hearing is not a trial. We're just establishing probable cause, and we'll explain more about what that entails, taking a look at the U.S. law in Utah. But here today, we had these two gentlemen testify. First guy was Chris Bagley, former UVU police officer. No longer there. He has moved on to a different branch. And he came and testified most of the day about all of the initial observations that occurred while he was there on scene when Charlie Kirk was murdered. We then will see what this guy had to say. His name is David Hull. Utah Department of Public Safety was the lead investigator on the case and has really connected the dots to show and to authenticate a lot of the video evidence which is being presented in court. And a lot of the exhibits are not available for public viewing. Now, the death videos of Charlie Kirk, I know many people have seen those, may he rest in peace, but they're not going to be presented to the public because of the brutality of those videos. But other exhibits are also not being shown at this moment. The defense is objecting to basically everything that's happening right now. All of those objections have been largely overruled. But we'll see exactly what went down today and see what the most substantive updates from both of these guys were. Now, earlier today, Erica Kirk was seen making her way into the courtroom. You see Fox News had some clips that they shared over here as the widow makes her way in as the victim to sit in court and listen to this brutal testimony. Here's what it looked like. All right, so tough day, obviously, all around. And so prayers up for the Kirk family and especially their kids. But here was the other incoming video of the Kirk parents, who we don't see a lot of, but they were in session today. Robert Kirk and Catherine Kirk. One America News also got them heading into the courtroom, so it was a full house. Trump Jr. was there. We know many other content creators were there, and here's what it looked like when they were making their way in. Yeah, not a lot of audio, pretty somber entrances into the courtroom as you would expect. But we see the media was there just in full swing. Here's what it looked like outside the courtroom doors before they made their way inside. So lots of people there. Now, there was some reporting that inside the courtroom, that before things got underway, that Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooter, was seen laughing in court. This is being reported according to the Daily Mail, saying that Tyler Robinson was seen laughing. Erica was weeping just feet away. And that's horrible. Erica Kirk, dressed in all black, faced her husband's alleged murderer for the first time that we've seen here today. 5-day preliminary hearing getting underway. Bursting into tears before the hearing even started, according to the Daily Mail's reporter who was inside the courtroom. She was accompanied by Charlie's parents, Robert and Catherine. Trump Jr. was there with his wife, the new wife, Bettina Anderson Trump. Robinson, however, was said to have been seen laughing with his lawyer, Kathy Nestor, who today was objecting repeatedly about everything, even though a lot of these issues were already settled before the preliminary hearing started. And now we know Tyler Robinson, 23 years old, charged with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We're going to learn a lot more about what the cops testified about today. And here are some of the photos that we've already seen. Now, when the testimony got underway and they talked about Charlie actually being shot and killed, apparently the Kirk family left the courtroom, as you could understand. And so we'll also hear more about this clear line of sight. And we've got a diagram here that we created using the most recent powerful Fable AI. And this is mostly to scale, according to the program. But what we'll see here is exactly where the shooter was, where Charlie Kirk was, and break this down in further detail because there was a lot of testimony about it. But inside, we also saw testimony from the woman who was outside the courtroom right here, giving us a little preview of what was going on inside.
I am outside of the Provo District Courthouse, slightly out of breath. There was a 15-minute break. I ran downstairs from the 4th floor to give you an update of what we have seen so far. The family members are all in the courtroom, have been in the courtroom until the last 15 minutes. As soon as the officer who was testifying mentioned that he saw Charlie, they stayed in the courtroom for that, but as soon as he mentioned that a shot was fired, Charlie's parents and his wife and family members stood up and walked out of the courtroom so they would not hear any of that graphic testimony. Remaining in the courtroom, though, is Donald Trump Jr., the president's son, is there with his wife, and several other people, including Jack Prosobiec, who were friends of Charlie Kirk and also friends of Erica Kirk. Now, I apologize, I'm still slightly out of breath. I sprinted down here to the parking lot to give you updates as we're getting them. In the courtroom so far, if you've been listening, a lot of it has just been going over maps of campuses and the buildings on campus, trying to let people know exactly what buildings were there, who was watching them, trying to give a layout of the land. So we're headed back into the courtroom right now. I'll give you updates as we get them. I did speak to Donald Trump Jr. for a few minutes. I'll have more on that coming up in just a little bit. Headed back inside.
All right. And so they were apparently not allowed to bring in any devices or be tweeting from inside the courtroom. The judge said, we're live streaming it. You don't need to do any of that. And so we'll kick things off as soon as we learn exactly what the rules are in Utah. According to the state court's website, Rule 7B gives us the details about what happens at a preliminary hearing, which is what this is, not a trial. And at this stage, The state has the burden of proof and they present their evidence. It is resembling a trial. You have witnesses, the state has the burden of proof, and at the conclusion of the state's evidence, the defendant may testify under oath. They may call witnesses, they may present their own evidence, and the defendant may cross-examine the adverse witnesses according to the rules. Now, we're not trying to find a level of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. We're just trying to determine whether there was probable cause such that the charges can advance against the defendant and we can bind them over into pretrial proceedings and essentially bind them into trial. So if from the evidence, the judge, in this case, Judge Graff, if he finds probable cause to believe that the crime charged has been committed and that Tyler Robinson committed it, then he'll order that he's bound over for trial. And then we'll get more pretrial hearings and pretrial discovery and a bunch of additional proceedings, rather, that will continue forward as we advance towards a trial. Now, the findings of probable cause may be based in whole or in part on reliable hearsay, which is not generally admissible at trial unless you have something that is a hearsay exception or something that is qualified as not hearsay. Objections to evidence on the ground that it was acquired by unlawful means are not properly raised at the preliminary examination. So kind of a lesser standard of rule because we're not trying to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt just to determine probable cause. Now, if they do not find probable cause, then the judge must dismiss the information by which he's been charged. He has not been charged by a grand jury indictment, which is generally the more common way that people are charged with felonies, especially murder cases, and discharge the defendant. So it's a big preliminary fight for Tyler Robinson. He may enter findings of fact and more. We can have witnesses that testify, which we have. A prosecutor may present the testimony of any relevant witness, and the defense may introduce, even through cross-examination, other testimony that is about the charges presented. If the judge orders the defendant bound over for trial, which I am likely thinking is going to happen, then the judge must execute a bind over order and include any written findings thereafter the hearing. So that's the rule that we're going to be operating under. Here is how things kicked off with Judge Graff, and we've had a bunch of people clipping for us today. Gunther Eagleman is one of them. And in this opening, we see the judge acknowledges Erica in the courtroom.
Calling case 251-403-576. State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. Counsel, can you enter your appearances, please?
Chad Brumander, Ryan McBride, David State, Chris Bagley are also present.
Prosecutors entering their appearances.
Good morning, Your Honor. Kathy Nestor, Michael Burt, Richard Novak, and Stacy Visser here on behalf of Mr. Robinson, who's seated to my right.
Good morning. Mr. Robinson, good morning. For the record, the court also recognizes the presence of Ms. Erica Kirk. Ms. Kirk, good morning. First, with respect to courtroom protocol, to maintain security and decorum, any individual who exits the courtroom during proceedings will not be permitted to re-enter until the recess. All counsel are expected to take reasonable measures to safeguard confidential communication. Such measures may include the use of screen protections on electronic devices and care to avoid the inadvertent capture of privileged or private discussions by recording equipment or by those present in the courtroom. In addition, the microphones at your tables have been turned off. Again, in an attempt to try to minimize the possibility of any of the communications being captured. I ask that if you are speaking, that you come to the lectern, and that microphone will be live. And so that's the best way that we can hear you, and it is captured on the record.
All right, so audio throughout is up and down depending on how close they are to the microphone. But there were questions about these exhibits. And so the defense came out early in the day and said, we don't want any of this evidence, any of these exhibits that are being presented to you and to the court judge who's going to make the probable cause finding to go out to the public. Here's what the defense had to say about this when it came up in court today.
Your Honor, if we could maybe not have it on the lectern screen. We're getting reports that the documents shown on the lectern screen are being live streamed. So maybe if we could just not show that one until it's admitted.
Mr. Grunander?
I'll submit it to the court, Judge. I've got copies of these for myself that I can refer to as I'm asking questions.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and grant the request by Ms. Nestor. We'll go ahead and there should be a power button to turn it off.
I'm not sure where that's at.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're good.
And if at any point, Mr. Grunander, you do need to use the monitor, let's revisit that. And obviously, Ms. Nestor, you can renew your objection if needs be. But for now, the monitor's turned on. Let's go ahead and proceed.
All right. So the hearing gets underway, and there was another reporter who's inside the courtroom. His name is Brecken Thies, and he's a White House correspondent. He also works over for the Federalist, and he said that some of these exhibits may actually be coming out. And there was another bit of testimony today where the judge said something to that effect. He said, there are really kind of three categories of exhibits. One, we're definitely not going to release them because they're gore and it's inappropriate. There's other levels that we absolutely can release, but we're not just going to release them now. And then there's kind of a middle category of stuff that we can fight over perhaps later after the exhibits are submitted into the judge, after the hearing's over, then we can go back and fight over that. So we'll see. I think that a lot of this stuff will ultimately come out, but we're just not getting it in real time as the hearing is underway. So here was one more starting point. So this is the first witness who testified today. His name is Chris Bagley, former UVU police officer. And just as a recap, if you remember, we've talked about this case quite a bit, but there were three main components of the state's argument. One was circumstantial evidence about tying Robinson to the rifle and the casings. If we recall, this was part of the original charging documents saying that they actually found bullets at his home that matched the bullets that were found on the scene. And there were etchings in the bullets, and the spent casing was also tied to the rifle. And so that was really major segment of evidence, part two. First one, of course, was surveillance video. We saw a lot of that from the FBI when they were still trying to find the guy. We also had the roommates who was saying that Tyler Robinson ultimately made confessions to him. We have parents who were also communicating with Tyler Robinson. We had Lance Twiggs, who will probably have some video evidence from at some point in time. There was the family friend who went over. Dad called the family friend, who's former law enforcement, who helped to kind of talk things down and allegedly bring him back into the police station. And then we had DNA evidence. And you remember that the rifle, ammunition rounds, these are all excerpts from the information. They were sent in, rifle, ammo, towel were sent in for forensic processing. DNA consistent with Robinson's was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. So all of that was DNA evidence. And so those are, I think, the main buckets that we're talking about at this moment by the state. The defense right now was really fighting to get a continuance. They were trying to postpone this thing as long as possible. But we haven't seen exactly what their defense is quite yet. And they're probably going to hold these cards close to the chest. But one thesis would be that they want to just save the life. This is a capital case. They're asking for the death penalty. So in other words, you can find him guilty, but say that there was some other justification that doesn't warrant the death penalty. So lose the verdict, win the life is the concept. We also could wait for something to say that there was a forensic collapse, that the evidence just doesn't hold up. We saw that there was the report about the bullet in the fragment saying that it was essentially inconclusive. There was a whole scandal that occurred before we got here where they were explaining that the media kind of went hog wild. They read the ballistics report incorrectly. They said that the bullet does not match the gun, which is not what it said at all. In fact, the bullet they just said was ultimately inconclusive. At one point right here, the bullet was inconclusive. The Exhibit 6A bullet jacket fragment could not be identified or excluded as having been fired from the Exhibit 1 rifle based on the agreement of all discernible class characteristics and neither sufficient agreement nor sufficient disagreement of the individual characteristics. So the conclusion was inconclusive. But the media came out and they said it did not match, and that kicked off this whole back and forth. The prosecution was held in contempt for responding to that. And we've had a battle over the ballistics. And so if that collapses further, if there's some other evidence that comes out later that it unequivocally did not match, and there's DNA on the rifle and the bullet came from somewhere else, then that would be something that could be a forensic collapse. You could also say he was forced to do it by someone else. That would kind of mitigate the intent behind it. Maybe that would justify eliminating the death penalty. Some third-party intervener. We've also seen other Discord chats and some other online X posts that people were saying, Charlie better not come to this thing before this date on 9/10. Better not come to UVU. Something bad's going to happen. So who were those people? Were those some third parties? Are there any other procedural mistakes or violations that they could take advantage of, which they tried to do when the media went wild and said that the bullet fragmented when it hit, it deformed to such a degree that you couldn't conclusively match it back to the rifle. Then the prosecution responded to that and said, well, actually, what the report said was this, and we think we've got a strong case and a lot of evidence against Tyler Robinson. Then the defense came and they said, foul, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to say that. There's protective orders that are out there that prohibit you from doing that. And since you did comment on the case and the evidence of the case, now you should be sanctioned and we should get a benefit and try to win that way. You could see, I'm not saying any of this is going to happen, but these are just some ideas that we jotted down. What about corruption, tampering, chain of custody problems? We get some evidence that comes out later that a cop, did something that was actually malfeasance. Evidence is not properly preserved. There's some sort of a cover up, but I think these things are a lot of them are long shots. So we'll see ultimately what their defense is, and we may add some stuff to that list. But with this guy testifying first, he's really going to lay out for us the initial observations and the location. And we have now this 2-scale chart showing the line of sight. And so we're going to work our way to this, but he starts off by saying when he first was there, he cleared the scene. And this is how the testimony went down from the first officer who was at UVU as a UVU police officer. He's no longer there anymore. He's now moved on to a different agency. But here's what he said in one of the most substantive bits of his testimony, which was most of the day thus far.
He was answering a question, kid asked him a question, and then I heard a shot fired.
Do you know what time that was?
Yes.
What time was that?
12:23.
What did you see?
At that moment, I saw him lean to the left. So
when you say him, you see
Charlie.
Charlie.
So I saw him go to the left because I could no longer see the right side of his body. So he went further underneath the tent to the north side of the tent, so left.
Okay. Can you describe the reaction of others that were there?
Yeah, so then everybody started getting up and starting to run in more of a chaos kind of situation.
Before you continue, can you describe a little bit? So you mentioned Mr. Kirk was answering questions, talking to individuals.
Yes.
Were there others present?
Yes.
Any idea about approximately how many? How would you describe it in your terms?
In my terms, I'd say when I was up there looking down, I'd say there's several thousand people because you had it on the grass. It was jam-packed in the amphitheater sitting on the grass. You had people standing on the back up along the cement. You had people that were on the second level, the Sorensen, and over by the Woodbury building. There's another level there where a lot of people were standing and watching. So it was pretty packed, okay. Several thousand people.
You mentioned you heard something. What did you hear again?
I heard a gunshot.
Okay. And can you describe you described Mr. Kirk's reaction? Was that simultaneous to hearing the gunshot?
Yes, it was.
When he fell to the left?
Yes.
Did you see the reaction from the crowd?
Yes.
What was that?
Everybody kind of got up. They all said, a lot of people were screaming, standing up, and starting to run in all different directions away from the center of the tent.
Okay. You're a police officer, yes, helping to secure the area, correct?
Yes.
What did you do?
At that moment, I recognized it as gunfire. I left post, which was right there on the south end of the Hall of Flags. I proceeded to right where the Fugle and the Hall of Flags meet. There's some outside stairs that I was starting to run down. As I was trying to get down to the bottom of the stairs, people were running up, people were laying down on the steps. I'm trying to jump over people to get to the bottom of the stairs so I can help stop an individual that's probably shooting.
What happened next?
By the time I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was informed on the radio that we had a shooter in custody. So I thought, at that moment, I was like, oh, that was kind of fast. Obviously, it was close range probably because we had an individual in custody. Another officer came on and said we had an individual in custody. So I decided to, since the threat is gone, now I can assess for anybody that's injured and start looking for any medical needs that's needed at that moment. I started canvassing the area. As I canvassed the area, I was looking for anybody that was injured. I saw a kid on the ground that was on about the second or third tier of in the grass next to a wheelchair, and he was almost convulsing. I thought he'd maybe been shot. Talked to the dad as I was running over there. He said that he was just having a seizure, that he was fine, he was not injured. So then at that moment, I observed that there was no other injuries that I could see at that moment.
Okay. Was your attention drawn to anything else at that time?
Yeah, so after we got some people kind of cleared away a little bit, I thought I needed to start preserving the scene because we had a crime scene. And with some of my experience and training to that effect I decided now we need to contain the scene and help preserve as much evidence as we can. So I started pushing people off the grass.
All right, so that's some testimony about the immediate aftermath of the shooting. Then he says, I ran up 4 flights of stairs, and he gets to the top of the roof where Tyler Robinson was allegedly laying and identifies the black screwdriver, which has been a lot, has created a lot of conversation around this screwdriver. Here's what he said.
I turned to my chief and I said, that was a rifle shot. He said, I agree. And I looked up at that moment, right in the line of sight, I could see the Losi building had a direct line of sight. So I proceeded to go look at that and see what was going on up there.
Okay. Can you just briefly describe your route to the Losi Center?
So from the courtyard, you can go into the Sorensen Center. And like I said earlier, there was on level 1, there's some elevators or there's stairs. I ran up 4 flights of stairs, got to the 4th level of the Losi building, and proceeded to the south of the Losi building. There's some stairs, which is at breezeway between the computer science building and the Losi building. There's some stairs that go up to the top of that. And so I went to the top of that.
Is that the stairway that you previously described?
Yes, on the outside of the Losi building.
Okay. It's a public stairway?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you make it to the rooftop?
I did.
Do you know about what time you got there?
I got there at 12:44.
Okay. What did you do when you got on top?
When I got on top, I hopped over the guardrail. I noticed that there was an object which was sitting right about 10 or 15 feet in from the other side of the guardrail in the gravel that looked out of place to me.
And in relationship to where you hopped over the guardrail, what direction was that object?
To the west of the guardrail.
Okay. And did you recognize the object?
I did.
And what was it?
It was a red and black screwdriver.
Okay.
All right, so that screwdriver, of course, people are asking, was the rifle disassembled when he got onto the roof? Did he re-disassemble the rifle after he got off the roof? Because he jumps off the roof and people are saying, where's the rifle? Then the rifle ends up in the forest somewhere. Then there's messages about him wanting to go back and get the rifle, but the cops are already circulating the perimeter, and so he can't go do that. So questions about evidence and whether that was used, and if he left it there, how did he disassemble it and then reassemble it without the screwdriver? Was it disassembled when he jumped off the roof and then reassembled it and left the screwdriver, the tool that he needed in order to reassemble it, up there? Then how could he reassemble it, is kind of the thesis. So he says it was there. Then here's more. He says, I saw essentially what looked to be like a sniper's nest where somebody was just lying in wait and you could see the gravel moving around and unfolding on the rooftop in order to take the shot. Here's what he had to say.
Officer, upon seeing this disturbance in the gravel, you've described what it looked like to you.
Yes.
Someone lying down in a prone position, correct?
Yes.
What did you do next?
So when I got to the top of the Losi building during that day, I noticed the screwdriver, kept going to the edge, found that prone position. At that moment, I realized, because it was direct line of sight, plus the disturbance in the gravel, where I could see somebody laid down in a prone position or a sniper position, and asked dispatch to get on then I realized that we probably didn't have our shooter in custody. From that moment, I asked dispatch to get on the camera system and to see if anybody was on top of the Losi building during the time of the incident.
Were you advised of anything?
I was. Dispatch came back and advised me that there was a male individual on top of the roof that was there at the time of the shooting.
Did they describe what his movements were?
They did. They stated that he ran to the edge, dropped down, crawled, got in a prone position.
I'm going to stop you right there. Ran to the edge. What direction and what edge?
Running west and southwest of the Losi building, so ran towards the tent of where Charlie Kirk was, so they could get a line of sight. And then the individual stood up after the shooting and ran northeast on the top of the Losi building.
Okay. You mentioned that this individual on the video dropped off the edge. Did you get that?
I haven't mentioned that.
Oh, what happened? What else was described to you?
Then, well, at that moment, so I knew that there was possibly a shooter on the run.
And then he goes the other direction, hops off the roof, and then you pick that back up in the FBI footage that we've seen for a long time. So here's where he gets now down off of the witness stand and goes over to the screen and identifies where that line of sight was, which is, from his perspective, very clear.
I'm on top of the Losi building, which is where the gravel is towards the bottom center. I'm looking west towards the tent, which is in the upper center, that you got a white tent. You can see the grass down there in the amphitheater. You got the Hall of Flags that's more towards the top center, and behind that you've got I-15. But what I'm looking at is in the disturbance of the gravel is what I saw that day. Okay, and what can you describe for the record that disturbance? To me, when I got up there and I could see this disturbance of gravel, to me it looks like a sniper pad, a person that has been laying in a prone position, and you've got markings of elbows, knees, and feet to where somebody was in the line of sight of where Charlie's tent was. Thank you. And if we could, again, take the, if we could publish the State's Exhibit number 2. You recognize that, right, officer? Yes, I do. Where on the Losi rooftop did you observe this disturbance in the gravel? If you go to the center of the picture, if you go to the center of the picture in the darker gray part of it, on the left side, so the south side of the Losi building, it would be right in the line of sight of the Charlie Kirk tent that's straight in front of it. Okay. So the southwest side of the roof. All right, and now he actually goes over there and points out exactly what we're looking at. And here is, you can see him walking up to the screen, and he'll give us a breakdown. This is where was that holstered line when you observed it? So again, this is the picture of the courtyard area facing north. On the south end down here, you got different tiers of grass. On this top tier back here in this area, which is more the center bottom left of the photo. So it's going to be the waterfalls on the left side, so more towards the top of it. On the south side by the Fugal building, that top tier of grass is about where it was at. In the middle area of that? Yes. By the Fugal building. Okay. And that's where I could see straight up where the line of sight was. All right, and the New York Times shared a photograph of this. Let me bring this one over. They are doing some live updates. And so here's a photograph, it looks like, of the line of sight. And that was one of my original questions, right? If Charlie is down here at a depressed arena, essentially, kind of tucked down at the bottom of this, somebody is up. Can you see him under the eave of the tent, right? Because the tent was covering him pretty dramatically. And the tent has a front face facade on it that would, block off presumably the sun that's coming down from wherever angle to cover you up. So if he's up, there's a tent there, and Charlie is seated under the tent, kind of back behind it. How could he have seen him? Is it a magical bullet that goes down and then back up into the tent, or was the shooter at a lower angle?
So what I did is I took some of the dimensions and I threw them into Claude Fable, which is the most recent AI tool that was, banned by the military and then allowed to come back out. And I asked it to generate a graphic for us so that we could see this if you drew it to scale. And so here's what it spit out for us, and I'll walk through this with you today. Now, it says there was about 430 feet in horizontal distance, so about 143 yards. So think of it, like a football field and almost a half of a football field. You've got the tent over on this side where Charlie was seated. You've got about a 45.6 foot drop based on the 4-story building plus the depression. That number might be even a little bit higher. So I think you could even raise this up a bit. So you could take this up to, if you have those numbers and maybe that distance is maybe up to even 50, 60 feet, maybe 70 feet, it's only going to increase the angle of the shot, let's say up to from 6.1 degrees up to maybe 8.1 degrees. But you understand the point that this graphic is trying to make. So you've got 430 feet horizontal distance, about a 50-foot vertical drop. And if you chart it out and zoom in on this bottom chart, you can see how it might even get under the eave of the actual canopy on the tent that was actually covering him. So here from this chart, it says 16-inch clearance under the eave. Charlie is seated. He's about at 4.4 feet high. Let's say the canopy of the tent is 10 feet tall. And this is the bottom half of this is zoomed in on this bigger scale. So it's like taking this section of the graphic and then just zooming in on it. So give or take 45.6 feet. That may be higher or lower, more or less. But ultimately, yeah, and he's not facing the crowd, right? So his feet are in the wrong direction on this chart. Okay, so it didn't get that right. But he's actually seated the other way. But you can see my point in sharing this with you is that even if these are more or less accurate, I think that a line of sight is possible from the top of that roof. And my concern was that this was much higher and that this was much lower, and it may be. I'm just sharing this with you for illustrative purposes. Feel free to correct it. Please send me corrections if you have them, and I will revise this 100%. But these are rough numbers. But the point is, it's so far away that you can ultimately get more of a horizontal shot. It's not like it's in super close proximity. So if you scale down the distance, if it was only maybe 50 yards, then it would be a much sharper angle and trajectory down. So something to think about. Equal scale says this. It says there was about a 430-foot distance, rooftop prone position according to the charging docks. Estimated 50-foot muzzle height, including terrain. 6.5 foot would be the eave of the tent. 4.4 feet seated neck height. Angle range across estimates from about 4 to 8 degrees. And so if what I was thinking is that even on this angle from the New York Times, which has now just shifted right here, if the tent is located in this area and you're seated there, and I don't know if this is the photo exactly from the location, but the closer you are, the steeper the angle will be, and you might be thinking about it looking down at the top of the tent, so you can't actually see his neck. But if the distance is what it says it is, and the AI spit out this to-scale chart, and if you're an AutoCAD person or an AI person, I would recommend drawing this to scale. This looks plausible from what we're seeing here. And the distance is so far spread apart that the angle is really only about 6 degrees. So you got a scope, you've got a high-powered rifle. Charlie is seated there. You might have a direct line of sight to him. That's what the officer was saying. So sharing that with you. Again, feel free to send me any corrections. I would appreciate them. I will come in and modify this chart and come on back here if any of these numbers look wrong to any of the interested individuals who can math and calculate trajectories and do physics. Let me know. So that's what he was essentially testifying to. So it sounds plausible. Here is now more. So the other guy came out to testify, and his name is David Hull, Utah Department of Public Safety. And he's the lead investigator who is here to really confirm the chain of custody, where the videos come from that then got submitted as evidence. And many of those videos that were submitted after he testifies were Charlie dying, getting shot in the neck. So it was a pretty brutal day. The judge was reportedly wincing after watching some of it and just said, that's the end of the exhibit. Like, thank you, it's over. Here was Mr. Hull's testimony. He, of course, is a current officer with Utah Department of Public Safety. And here's what he had to say.
Go ahead and tell us what date you contacted Ms. Wright.
I contacted her, I think it was April 6th specifically, but Agent Davis met with her on April 7th.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question. So you actually talked to her was it on the phone?
It was, yes.
And did you arrange a time for either you or Agent Davis to go get the video from Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Is that how it happened?
Yes.
And then you didn't go, it was Agent Davis that went?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. And what, if anything, has been done with that video in preparation for today?
My understanding is that some edits were made by your office in order to protect some of the participants in the video.
Okay. But what, let me ask you this. Did you or Agent Davis visit with Ms. Wright again?
Yes, that was in April, and that was where my correction was. The video was originally provided to Agent Mortensen. Okay. So I misspoke.
Okay. Let's go back and let's make sure this is very clear.
Sure.
Okay. So someone with the SBI collected a video.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can even see it right there in that video, like we were just talking about. So that Eve is right here under the tent. Charlie's right here. And I think even if he looked right out that direction, right up there, and there's a shooter on this roof up here or over here, even the cameraman can see it, who's right at about that same location. So that's a pretty good video that they played right there. The cameraman is maybe a little bit lower than Charlie, but also almost under the eave, off by, let's say, 6 feet off center where Charlie is seated, but about the same height and maybe 2 to 3 feet forward ahead of where Charlie is. And so you look out that direction, you can easily see somebody on that roof right there, on that roof, basically anywhere from there. And I think that supports the graphic that we just drew.
Yes.
From Amber Wright.
Yes, Agent Mortensen contacted Ms. Wright on October 8th, and a video was provided to him electronically on October 11th.
Okay. And now I'll ask the next question. What, if anything, has been done either by you or another agent with that same video in preparation for today's hearing?
We contacted Ms. Wright to arrange a meeting so that Ms. Wright could review the video and that we could verify firsthand with her that the video was what she had taken on September 10th at the event at UVU.
Okay. And who had that follow-up visit with Ms. Wright?
That was Agent Davis. I was not able to attend.
Okay. And you know that happened because you spoke to Agent Davis?
I spoke to Agent Davis, and he provided me with a written statement that Ms. Wright had completed.
Okay.
An 1102.
Okay. And so you have seen that written statement?
I have, yes.
Okay. And you've read through it?
I have.
Does that, do you recall whether that statement was on a form or a piece of scratch paper? What do you recall?
My recollection is that it was on an official, I believe, a State Bureau 1102 statement, which is a written form that is filled out by a witness that contains the 1102 warning.
Right. And by that, do you mean the advisory, the statement that's written on that piece of paper is going to be used at a preliminary hearing?
Yes.
It includes that advisory.
Yes.
Does it also include a warning that if someone provides a false statement, in this case, Ms. Wright, that it could be punishable by a Class A misdemeanor?
It does, yes.
All right.
All right. So assembling the chain of custody on all of the videos. Here's more on this. And now they're kind of fighting over transparency of these videos, attorneys challenging the ruling. And here is how that sounded today.
I'm ruling that it is admissible into evidence, again, taking into consideration the analysis the court's talked about in regards to 1102s and this particular piece of evidence as it relates to the 1102 video, the 1102 statement 6.1. And I'm going to allow it to admit it into evidence, and because the faces of The alleged victims are not all obscured. There are some that are visible. It's not going to be published to in-court monitor, and obviously not to be filmed by the media. So the court will receive it into evidence. The court will watch it again right now, and then we can continue to proceed.
Very good. Thank you, Judge.
So if to the state, if you would like to play it again for me, I'm viewing it as it relates to consideration as the magistrate.
Your Honor, this sounds like an issue that's going to come up again. I represent the news media. Can I be heard on this issue?
Yes.
News wants the exhibits.
I just wanted to address it. I've tried to be quiet. I just wanted to address it now because it's going to keep coming up, it sounds like. The classification rule that Ms. Nestor is citing and that Your Honor was just reading is not about in-court exhibits. That is classification for records in the court file. So it is a fundamentally different thing when we are in a public proceeding and the state is presenting an exhibit that you are relying on, and the public is being denied the chance to see it.
Couldn't agree more with that.
That is a fundamental violation of the right of access, and it's a qualified right, and I recognize that. But that's not the ruling that you just made. You're just ruling based on the Code of Judicial Administration, which doesn't have anything to do with when something is presented in a public proceeding. So while I recognize there are certain things where I understand that you were going to make an exhibit by exhibit evaluation based on certain exhibits that may, be somewhat, may cross the heavy threshold of being so prejudicial that they cannot be shown in public. That is not this. And so I just wanted to make clear that the things that are in Rule 202 are not, when it is presented in open court as an exhibit for you to rely on, the public is entitled to see what you're seeing so that they can understand what your decision-making process is. And so this one, it doesn't sound like this sounds pretty anodyne to me. It's not even depicting the shooting. I just wanted to clarify that the classification issue about when, we're filing things with the court and we say like this, maybe we file a motion to classify. That's not the decision that you're making today. The decision you're making today is the state is presenting something to you. You're watching it. You're making a decision based on it. And the people in the gallery have the right to see that. Whether you allow EMC of it is a different question. And we think that the EMC should be allowed to, for reasons that we briefed. But I do think that it at least should be published to the courtroom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, we would like to see everything as much as we possibly can. I, again, don't think we need to see the gore, but the less you release to the public, the more skeptical people get, and then people will fill in the gaps because there is no alternative explanation. And we had a lot of criticisms about this at the initial phase of this case. If you were here when it all went down, we were wondering why they kept Tyler Robinson's cameras off when he was appearing in front of the courtroom, why he was not even being transported into the courtroom for key hearings, and why the media was being blocked out and they had secret hearings before the judge kind of changed his tune, and now things have been slightly more accessible. So we've had criticisms about that, and again, it just creates a void, and then people fill the void with information that may or may not be true because there is no alternative. You can't even fault them for that. If the information was more transparent, then I think a lot of the alternative theories would have been dealt with. Like if we would have at the beginning had somebody from the FBI just confirm, no, he wasn't wearing body armor, or he was, then people's analysis wouldn't have had conversations about him having body armor. We could have had some of these simple details just articulated for us, and a lot of the guessing would have, I think, been alleviated, and we could have had a more truthful conversation about this. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, and they have rationales for it. But I think in a case like this, if you are working overtime to protect the integrity of the proceedings and you are overprotective of the integrity of the proceedings, you create that void that then allows other information, other theses, other ideas to pop into those things that then do damage to the integrity of the proceedings. So by being overly protective, you're actually undermining your own cause rather than just being transparent about everything so that we can just talk about the facts and just unpack them together, whether you agree or disagree with these things. Let's just take a look at what is being presented and talk about it. But I think the media is right to make that argument. And here we've got now some video footage that was played for the court. And Hall explains that it was actually authenticated. This is the DPS officer, David Hall, testifying in the hearing today.
So any additional video that was collected by either you or another member of the SBA?
Yes, the campus itself, UVU, is very well equipped with cameras throughout. And they were willing to work with us to provide video from those cameras. And so that was collected as part of the investigation also.
With regards to the UVU surveillance video, do you know if video was collected from there behind where Mr. Kirk was seated at the time that he was shot?
Yes, I'm aware that under the Hall of Flags there is I'll refer to it as a breezeway, but a way for people to move from one side into the amphitheater, walking underneath the Hall of Flags. And I know there was a camera situated in that location.
Okay. And do you know, with regards to that camera view, well, let me ask you this. So that particular camera view, there was surveillance that was provided to you or another agent from UVU?
Correct.
Okay. And do you recall who provided that video to you initially and who collected it?
Initially, I don't know specifically for that video, but I know that whole process was overseen by Mr. Olson, who's responsible for that system.
Okay. Do you have a first name for Mr. Olson?
Curtis Olson.
I'm sorry?
Curtis Olson.
Okay. And do you know what Mr. Olson or Curtis Olson's position is at UVU?
I believe he's a director.
Right. Is it his job to basically gather and forward any video that's captured by UVU?
He has a long title, but I think it's Director of Infrastructure, but he is responsible for that system.
Okay. With regards to this particular video, the video from underneath the Hall of Flags, what, if anything, have you done with that video in preparation for today's hearing?
I went specifically to meet Mr. Olson, have him review the video that we had, and again, like with the others, I had him complete an 1102 statement for us describing his role and verifying the videos. I did that actually on July 2nd of this year.
July 2nd of this year?
Correct.
All right, so that is testimony from David Hall. And then he also was just explaining moments ago that the primary focus was to identify that guy. So he spends a bunch of time talking about the chain of custody, authenticating the videos, finding where they came from, then says he reviewed hundreds of hours of surveillance and they wanted to identify this person. The person then identifies themselves, turns himself in, named Tyler Robinson. And here's what he had to say about that happening at the hearing.
What, if anything else, did you do on the 10th of September 2025?
Primary focus was to identify the individual who'd been seen on the roof with the preliminary footage. And so there was a big effort to review as much of the video that we had available to us from both the public, but predominantly from Utah Valley University, in an effort to follow that individual both forward and backwards from the time of the shooting.
Okay. So if I understood you correctly, priority was to identify the shooter.
Yes.
And to that end, you started reviewing even more UVU video than you've already described?
Correct, yes.
Okay. What, if anything else, either did you do or happened initially that helped you identify who that shooter was?
So there was hundreds of hours of video that was reviewed, but the predominant focus, again, was on tracking the individual from the roof either after the shooting had occurred or trying to trace the steps of the individual prior to the shooting.
Okay.
And we were able to do that through a combined effort of individuals. And the focus was having people reviewing video identify people who could fit the original description of the individual that had jumped off the roof.
Okay. At that point, so at this point, approximately how many hours of UVU video do you think you personally had seen or watched?
Myself, maybe 10 or 20 hours of video, being called in to look at different camera angles and different views of individuals. But there was a large team of people reviewing video.
Okay. Reviewing video?
Yeah, from UVU.
Were some of them SBI agents?
Yes, correct.
And combined, how much video do you think you watched that first day on the 10th?
It would be in the tens or hundreds of hours of video was reviewed.
Okay. Did anything else come along that helped you identify who that shooter might be?
Eventually on the evening of the 11th, we received word from Washington County that an individual in that area had reached out to law enforcement and was wanting to turn themselves in for the incident at UVU.
Okay. And did you, at that point in time, did you receive a name from Washington County?
Yes, we did.
And what was that name?
Tyler Robinson.
What, if anything, did you do with that information, the name Tyler Robinson?
That information was given to our SIAC, or our State Information and Analysis Group, and they put together what would be called a workup. So they would look at driver's license records, DMV records to determine addresses, obtain pictures of individuals, and then any associated vehicles or things like that.
So was that done with Mr. Robinson?
It was, yes.
Driver's license record was pulled?
Yes.
Did that include, if you remember, or do you know, did that include a photograph of Mr. Robinson?
It did include a photograph of Mr. Robinson, yes.
How about an address and date of birth?
There was an address and a date of birth, and I believe a DMV record with an associated vehicle.
All right. And so that DMV record did include a vehicle that was associated with Mr. Robinson?
Correct.
Okay. Do you remember what the make and model of the vehicle was that was tied to Mr. Robinson?
The Dodge Challenger.
Anything else beyond that you remember?
It was silver in color, and I believe there were two registered owners of the vehicle.
Okay, and who were the registered owners?
Mr. Robinson and then his mother.
Do you recall whether or not a date of birth was included in that driver's license information that you got initially?
Yeah, I believe the actual driver's license record was shared, so it would have included a date of birth.
All right. With with Tyler Robinson's personal information, were you able to expand your search at all?
Yes, once we knew a vehicle that we were looking for and we had an actual image of the individual, then we were able to use that video footage to try and track that specific individual.
Okay, and I'm sorry, let me clarify. So when I said expand your search, I'm referencing the UVU surveillance video.
Yes, we were able to.
Okay.
All right. And so this testimony is still going on live right now. Let's check out a little bit of it. And then we will, of course, fill in the gaps tomorrow when we come back on day 2, our recap, to see what else is happening. But this guy is still on the stand. Let's see where he is at right now in hearing, rather.
Yeah, the vehicle has very distinct wheels. I won't say that they're wholly unique, but in terms of the video footage that we were reviewing, the wheels on the vehicle are fairly unique and stand out on the video footage.
Quite low audio. Let's see what else we got.
So again, this is video that you received early on in the investigation, with those file names, and then in preparation for the preliminary hearing, you went back out and you met with someone about this video.
Correct.
Who specifically did you meet with about this video?
Met with Mrs. Noble.
And what did you do with Miss Noble?
We did what we had done before. We had a specific file that we wanted, or files that we wanted her to verify. The footage itself is broken into, I believe, 10-second segments. So we had specific files that we had her view and confirm that they were actually from her system. Those were written on the 1102.
Oops, sorry about that. Press the wrong button. Don't need voice audio.
As they have been before.
Okay, and who wrote those file names on this particular statement?
I believe it would be my handwriting on the 1102.
All right. What did you do next?
We had view the videos and then complete a statement verifying the authenticity of those videos on an 1102.
Okay. Was this also prepared on a State Bureau form?
I believe this was on a State Bureau Investigations form, yes.
And in this particular form on which Ms. Noble provided her statement, does it have the advisory that it would be used in lieu of her testimony here today?
It does, yes.
Does it also contain a warning that if she gave a false statement, she would be punished, or it's punishable by a Class A misdemeanor?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to have displayed on your monitor what's been marked State's Exhibit number 13 for identification. Let me know when you see that, would you?
I can see that.
Okay, and I'm going to have my assistant scroll through that slowly.
All right, so we'll pause here on this. We'll pick this back up in our recap tomorrow once we can get some better audio and we can kind of fast forward through all of the highlights. But as we mentioned, as we started this thing, this guy is testifying. Presumably, he'll continue on throughout the day. We'll see if there's anything else that emerges. Otherwise, there may be, I think, two other police officers who are testifying today or tomorrow. I think they're running out of time over there in Utah. So we'll see how far they get with David Hall. And we're here to soberly review the proceedings, to soberly review the documents, and to soberly review the evidence that exists. And if there's evidence of an exploding microphone, we'll talk about it. We'll be the first ones to talk about it. If there's other evidence that the defense presents to show that there was a broader conspiracy, which, by the way, I'm inclined to believe that there were other people who knew about this. Tyler Robinson, as we saw, there were some weird things going on with his notes and his messages, and he said, look under the keyboard, and there were Discord chats with other people that he was talking to. There were also Twitter posts, X posts with other people who were posting about this before it all happened. And so I am curious if this was part of a broader group of people who were supporting and behind him in some other manner. In other words, he may have been the shooter, but he may not have been the lone shooter. And whether that does anything to the actual criminality and liability in this case remains to be seen. But of course, if there were other co-conspirators who were involved in this, we'll definitely want to get to the bottom of that, because there were text messages that were very curious between him and his lover. There was a look under the keyboard before I tell you what's coming. And there was the X post on the internet saying, don't come to UVU, Charlie, because something's bad is going to happen. So who else knew about it? Was it the same Antifa cells that have been emerging all around the country? We'll see. And I would expect the defense to come up with an alternative theory, right? It's their job to come up with their defense theory and to present this evidence. Right now, we don't really know what it is. Is it going to be a third-party intervener? Was he under duress? Do they think that the evidence, the sufficiency of it, doesn't measure up? Was he not the shooter? Then how are they going to explain the DNA? And if he's the victim as a patsy of all of these things, then a lot of people would have to be getting things wrong. Like the medical examiner who said there was a bullet in his neck would have to be in on it. The ballistics individual who reviewed the actual bullet and said that it was fragmented beyond identification would have to be in on it. If the microphone blew up, how to put a bullet in his neck. So there's a lot to be seen, but as it stands, our role here is to try to be as sober as we possibly can about what is being presented so that we can stick to the facts without getting overly agitated one way or another. And that's something that I really got to stay close to, because I can get pretty damn agitated here. So we'll leave it there. This is our day one recap. Of course, it is still ongoing, but we'll hit the highlights back tomorrow when we pick back up with day two. Thank you for joining. and subscribing as we keep our eye on this one. Or if you're not liking what you're hearing, we're sorry that you're unsubscribing, but hopefully you come back and rejoin us again, because there is a process to these things. And that's the beauty of our adversarial system, is that the prosecution makes their case, the defense makes their case, the defense team should make their case. And unless they're in on it too, they should be identifying some of the most common objections to the sufficiency of the evidence in this case. But we'll keep our eye on it. Thanks for joining us as we do. All right, so we'll leave that one there. Now let's move on to some more of the common fare here, which is about Graham Platner. And this one's pretty good. Graham Platner, the Democrat candidate for senator in Maine, is now screwed. And this comes on the heels of a story about that very word, saying that he did it illegally against another woman who was not in favor of engaging consensually with him in that type of behavior. And the reporting is also saying that he's canceling his various campaign events all around the country. And it is so bad that even people inside his own Discord server, a group of volunteers who were chatting amongst themselves, are all abandoning ship, saying his volunteer Discord server, according to Nathan Bernard, is calling on Graham Platner to drop out. We're going to see the story, which just dropped today from Politico, and it looks like that he canceled a bunch of events in anticipation of this story actually breaking. So Augusta Town Hall for last night, canceled. Gorham Town Hall, canceled. Sanford Town Hall, canceled. Nothing else on his mobile Facebook page or on Mobilize from the official campaign saying, we're done. Now, Graham did release a video. We'll take a look at it here coming up, and has a very similar bang, bang, stinky Eric Swalwell type of feel to it. So we'll watch what he had to say about this. But Politico had a massive drop, and it's bad. It's non-consensual. We know we use the word screwed here, but this is not that. Actually, it's actually rape. So we'll take a look at it. But here's what they're saying in Discord, just to show you how bad it is. Saying, I don't necessarily want Graham to win, said somebody, redacted. I want our political ideas to win. But he's not coming back from this, and we should find someone to carry on the ideals now. People can be flawed and become better, but hanging your movement on the coattails of somebody credibly accused of sexual assault is the exact thing we're trying to be better than. Credibility, of course, has to be examined, but when people are splitting hairs on what exactly is sexual assault, what is it, then that's when we've gone a little bit too far. Well, it's not really rape. Who said that? Wasn't that Whoopi? Who said that? Whoopi? Well, it's not really like the rape or whatever it is. Like, what are you talking about? Seems like it's all in the same category. Someone else posted on Graham's Discord. He said, if this is all true, I am obviously the most heartbroken for this poor woman who lived through something no women should ever have to endure. I'm also, to a lesser extent, heartbroken for all the volunteers who believed in Graham, his message, and his campaign, and really thought he was a vehicle for change. And I'm ashamed I supported someone who could do something like that. Now, again, waiting for more to come out, not rushing to a snap judgment, but this is my gut reaction. She's not happy. Someone else said, man, I'm in so much pain, but probably not as much pain as the women that Graham raped. If I had to guess. Graham had great policies, said someone else. I hope someone whose character aligns with those policies stand up. Someone else said, I agree. He needs to drop out now. And the whole thing is really heartbreaking. Oh, and someone else said, I'm not going to lie, chat. I think this is a case of putting country over party. Even if this is a false allegation, it's credible enough to sink the campaign. Platner will not win with this hanging in the wings. And someone else said, I don't believe this for a minute. It's clearly orchestrated. And someone said, yeah, not even a minute, despite corroborating screenshots and messages between her and a friend who confirmed the conversation. This speaks to your attachment to Graham, not the validity or the lack thereof of the accusation itself. And so they're all kind of duking it out in the Discord server. He's canceling a bunch of events. The story is pretty brutal. So put the kids to bed. But he said, this is from the Washington Reporter saying, now a well-placed source tells us that Graham is ultimately going to be dropping out of the main Senate race this week. Note that Platner is yet to release his Q2 fundraising totals, a sign he may have underperformed expectations. And sounds like it's just going to get worse from here. So here's what Politico dropped today. And it seems like he was really trying to get ahead of the story. And he had a video ready to go. He dropped this as soon as the story broke, so he knew this was coming. But here's what they explain. Exclusive. Woman who dated Graham says that he sexually assaulted her, aka rape. The Maine Democrat denied the allegations and said any accusation like this is categorically untrue. We'll see. So this goes back to Politico. A woman who dated the candidate Graham says he forced her to have sex with him nearly 5 years ago. Repeated objections. He denies it. Who is this woman? She's a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rassicott, detailed the alleged incident over 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks. Now, Politico also spoke with a man that this woman Rassicott dated and confided in the years after the incident. So they talked to this other dude. He says, yeah, she told me about it. Reviewed documents, reviewed emails between her and her therapist, also messages between her and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Platner years before he ran for office. Now, she says they had an on and off relationship, and now he's a Senate nominee for more than 2 years. And then he entered her home uninvited one night in 2021, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him that encounter was not consensual. She said, I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me. Quote, I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. Platner denied all of it. He said these allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation is categorically untrue. But Rassicott previously described him as being reckless and unsettling. She talked about him before in a prior story to the New York Times, but says that she didn't go public with the specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a victim. She then said that she later felt compelled to go public about her experience because the reaction to the story was dominated by controversy about another woman, Lindsay Fifield, who alleged that Platner mistreated her and faced attacks because of her ties to the Republican Party. So she came out, and we covered that story here. This has been an ongoing saga, just like Bang Bang Swalwell. And she was allegedly, according to their people, a Republican liar trying to deviate the campaign for political purposes. Oh, she votes Republican, so of course she would make something like this up. Now, then they contacted her, Fifield, and she stood by the allegations and said, no, all that's true, Republican or not. So then Rassicott went back and she said, well, if she can talk about it, I guess I'm going to. My part of the story was just a read over. And the story was Lindsay and the accusations of her being politically motivated. So then Rassicott said that she was torn over coming forward, in part because she actually agrees with him. She's like, I agree with his politics. One of the reasons I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics and not supporting him as a person. I just want the truth out there. Blue no matter who, even if they rape you. I just want people to have a whole scope of who he is as a person, though. In a statement, Platner reiterated his denial. He said, I vigorously deny these things. They are also coached and coordinated. They're coming out of state establishment operatives. And for a year, they've been throwing everything at him, calling him a Nazi, a war criminal, a communist. None of it has been true. It's not a coincidence. This is coming right before the ballot deadline, just before another false allegation came out. And Graham began this campaign as a fight for Mainers. Now, he's an oysterman and a political newcomer, easily won the primary, now going up against Susan Collins, not previously accused, though, of any type of sexual assault like this. Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran, mental health struggles, alcohol abuse, but he says he's changed. So the story goes that Rassicott actually connected with him on Bumble back in 2019, the dating app, and did have intercourse with him consensually until it wasn't so consensual. There was a night late in 21, she said that she had exchanged text messages with him and said, do not come over, saying, I'm not in the mood for company. Later, though, she realized she heard a sound on the stairs. He let himself in. The door was unlocked. Platner came up the stairs, she said, to where she was on a couch, got on top of her, kept grabbing her, while she repeatedly told him to stop and that she wasn't interested, saying she smelled alcohol in his breath and believed he was almost blackout drunk because Platner ignored her protest and continued to grab her after knocking over an antique sewing kit, spilling small needles all over the floor. I had been telling him these words like, "No, don't," she recalled. And the look on his face and realizing that this was happening, I just realized that, like, I am in a situation where there's no consent here. Guy's just going mad. And of course, all Democrats believe all women. So this is not even up for debate according to their standards, which we'll endorse today. Ray Sakat said she tried to separate herself from Platner by telling him she couldn't even be in this room anymore. After which he followed her to her bedroom and then had intercourse with her against her will, saying that he also Fannie Willised inside despite her telling him not to, and that she was not using birth control at the time. Wow. So she went to clean herself up, and when she returned, Platner falls asleep. Typical. Saying she contemplated waking him up to kick him out, but worried he could hurt someone driving in the state that he was in. The following morning, she said, Platner tried to put his arm around her. She pushed him away. She said she asked him, "Do you remember what happened last night?" Platner said, "No." "What are you talking about?" Ray Sakat said she told him to leave and never contact me again. Ray Sakat said she waited several weeks until she got her, cycle to ensure that she wasn't pregnant, then sent him a private message on Instagram saying that the encounter was not consensual and she did not want to hear from him ever again. Saying he had no further contact with him after that. She said she later deleted all her text and social media, which is convenient, as she tried to move on from the assault, and said that she has never been able to recover the Instagram messages that she sent to him about the incident, which is not ideal. In the weeks after the alleged assault, Ray Sakat said she considered going to the police, of course, but struggled with shock and confusion about what had happened to her, and she did not file a police report. Well, yeah, that's interesting. Even as time passed, she said that she felt uncomfortable potentially telling an officer about this personal experience and feared retaliation from him. At first, she confided only in her therapist, who she continues to see. Yeah. Well, Ray Sakat showed Politico recent emails with her therapist in which she explained that she was talking to the media about her relationship with Platner and the rape, using an abbreviation for this, SA. In the message, she said she was not ready to go public, talking to her therapist, was seeking help corroborating her account in conversations that she was having with reporters. Her therapist said that she shouldn't have to speak publicly about this in order to be believed without referencing details of any particular incident. The therapist also, who Politico agreed not to name, declined to comment on Monday. So this woman also shared details about the alleged assault to the man she dated after Platner, who she began dating in 2022. The man, who was also granted anonymity out of concern for his personal privacy, told Politico that Ray Sakat had told him in bits and pieces about a bad experience with Platner before confiding the full details of what happened. His account of what she told him about the incident matched what she told us. So then Ray Sakat shared with Politico a series of private Facebook messages that she sent to an acquaintance in 2023, about a year and a half after the alleged assault, well before Platner launched his political career. Okay, so something contemporaneous. I mean, remember, President Trump owes E. Jean Carroll like $100 million. E. Jean Carroll didn't have even a fraction of this type of evidence. She apparently had some phone calls to some ladies after the fact. They didn't even hardly talk about it. And there was no video, no text messages, no camera, no police report. She couldn't even pick the year, time, and date. She said it happened at a Bergdorf at some random year 30 years ago. And judges did everything that they possibly could to hold Trump civilly liable, even though the jury didn't believe E. Jean Carroll as to the top actual rape charge, only to the finger charge, grabbed by the purse charge, and has now found that Trump is liable to the tune of $100 million. So and then they run around constantly and say he's a rapist because the judge found after the fact that digital penetration was akin to rape. Okay, so if that standard where there is essentially zero evidence at all is good enough for them, this dude should go to prison for like 1,000 years based on this. Saying in which he cautioned the acquaintance, said, don't get involved with him. In the messages, Reisicott said she had ended up in a bad situation with the guy, describing Platner as consensually careless, like he doesn't ask for consent, saying he doesn't listen to you when drunk. Now, the acquaintance said that she got the messages but declined to comment. Politico granted her anonymity to protect her privacy. Here is this lady on Facebook saying, hey, Graham looks pretty cute. What's his deal? Should I not fix up my friend assuming he's single? She says he can be charming and funny, and he's decently intelligent person. He's not all bad, but I ended up in a bad situation with him, and I just very politely call him consensually careless at times, which is a very weird way to say rape. It's like, what is it with these leftists? Everything needs a new name. It's not that you're an illegal alien, it's that you're an undocumented migrant. That's all. Okay. So he raped you? No, he just was careless in his consent. Okay. So, she says, yeah, when drunk, plus PTSD. I knew about the PTSD. He lies also. And she says what? Like forces himself on people? Yeah. So Politico also spoke with the friend that Reisicott had told about the alleged assault last summer, shortly after he launched his campaign. The friend to whom Politico granted anonymity due to fear of social and professional backlash called Reisicott, telling her about the incident, recalled her telling her, including that Platner had been very drunk and wouldn't take no for an answer, saying that she was contacted by the New York Times in spring and shared an off the record that Platner had in fact assaulted her. She told the Times that she had some positive memories of her relationship with him, but thought that he did not respect women and had cut off contact with him after the incident in 21. He came over drunk, but the Times, when they published this before, said he declined to elaborate about what had happened and just described the behavior as reckless and unsettling. Now, they reached out to the Times and they didn't comment. After the publication of the report in the Times, Reisicott connected with Cheyenne Hunt, a progressive Democrat lawyer who founded the nonprofit called Reckoning Action, which launched earlier this year to fight misogyny. Hunt, who had endorsed Platner last fall but renounced her support for him after the Times article, previously supported women who came forward with assault allegations against Bang Bang Swalwell earlier this year, prompting him to drop out of the California gubernatorial race. And that was also an attack vector on Eric Swalwell, no question about it. Like the dude, I'm sure, did the things, in my opinion, but everyone knew. They all knew about it, and they all just ignored it, looked the other way. They say, Trump's a rapist, the Epstein class, the pedophile class, blah, blah, blah. And they just let him get away with it for years because he was convenient for their party. Then when he was no longer convenient, then they said, time to pull that card, cha-ching, hit the button, and Swalwell gets ejected. So I could contemplate that also happening in a case like this. NBC News previously reported that Hunt was working with multiple women who had past relationships with Platner. Hunt connected Politico to Reisicott. She says, we confront misogyny, and we're aware of the allegations before ever even being connected with Jenny. We have been in contact with multiple women with really troubling allegations, and it just became clear that this is someone who's not fit to hold public office. Wow. So after the Times report last month, Platner had said that the allegations of physical misconduct were simply not true. And this is motivated by politics, saying repeatedly that he has not physically mistreated women at all. Reisicott said that she was bothered by his public denial. He said, I know that he is capable of putting his hands on women, so I don't believe that to be the truth. All right, so yeah, it's very interesting how these political allegations emerge at the very last minute, and you say, were you raped? No, I was consensually not, what did she say? Consensually ignored? Careless. Consensually careless. No, he was just careless with my consent. You mean rape? Okay, so she didn't call the police. She didn't report anything. She waited until she was not pregnant, and then the actual original story doesn't get the attention that it needs. So she then, it really comes back and exacerbates the story and says there's even more to the story. Then the story captures all the attention, and it happens right before a key deadline. Now, a lot of it sounds a little bit skeptical, and maybe like there is a political motive to take him out, but we can't consider those things, okay? These are their rules, not ours. We don't consider any of those other questions according to their standards, especially as it applies to them, and really only when it applies to them, since it's their standard. We believe all women, yeah. And no one's above the law. And so now Graham Platner, according to her, and if you believe all women, is a rapist, or at least a carelessly consensual consensus person. So all that is happening. Graham Platner came out and dropped a video. Here's what he had to say.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated. And we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
All right, there's some truth to that. If they pick off Maine, the Senate might be in big trouble. If they can flip that seat, which has been reliably Susan Collins for a very long time, then that means there may be something of a bad foreboding for the rest of the country. But very interesting message here. And he says they're going to take some time to reflect, I guess, upon this new story, which is a little bit weird. If you didn't do it, why are you canceling events? Why are you just not marching forward? This is ridiculous. I never did that to this woman. There's no more stories like this coming out, which he said the last time these stories came out. You just march forward. But you know what's interesting about the Democratic Party? A lot of them just don't care about any of this. In fact, they'll just shoot you in the neck if they think that you're a bad candidate. And so over at Kalshi, we're not sponsored. This is just an interesting little market here. Graham Platner is actually going up in the polls. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting here. They're like, oh, he's a rapist too. Great. Let's vote for him. So not long ago, you can see here, let's take a look at the 1 week chart. After the story emerges, there's a big split. It's like a 50-50 seat. This is the Kalshi Maine Senate Party winner. Who's going to win, the Republican Party or the Democrat Party? And then all of a sudden, on news of a sexual assault, consensually careless, they're like, wow, that sounds nice. Consensually careless. Wow, what a beautiful thing. So they came out, and apparently, according to the markets, he's doing well. So maybe it's actually going to help push him across the finish line, because they're all largely degenerates. And so degeneracy respects and appreciates degeneracy. And that's what the numbers are looking like. Can't argue with it. Don't know exactly what the heck is going on here. But rumors swirl. This will resolve if Platner drops out and a rep of the Democratic Party wins. This will still win. So in other words, they may sub him out. Like if it really is this bad and they think he cannot win, then they'll sub him out, put somebody else in there. Maybe that's being accounted for in this market. But otherwise, it's looking like they may think he's actually more electable now, not less, because of the Democratic Party. So we'll see ultimately what happens here. And it's their rules. They set them. All women must be believed, even if it is obviously a political attack like it was with E. Jean Carroll, in my opinion, against the president. You can't deny it unless you are a misogynist. So now we believe all women when it relates to Democratic candidates, and she's making allegations against him. So we'll see what else comes. I think that generally speaking, you see a pattern with these things. If there's 2, there's probably 3, which means there's probably 4, probably 5. And this thing has been trickling out for months now. So we'll see if that continues. We'll keep our eye on this one. But major panic, even amongst the people in his own Discord, and other leftists out there are saying the same thing. Like, man, this dude is cooked. How many of these can you take and allow to hit the public airwaves before people just say enough already? Credible allegation after credible allegation. Politico thought it was substantial enough to publish it. And yeah, why would he drop out right now? I mean, why would he go anywhere? Looks like they're going to win. So maybe he'll just go, be consensually careless with somebody else. He'll go up to 90%. You never know. That's that party for you. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, friends, if you're just getting here, it has been a lovely day and a beautiful stream. We talked a little bit Tyler Robinson and Charlie Kirk case today, and I saw some very just incredible comments out there. Thank you for jumping in the chat and sharing all of those. We saw 2 people testify today, Chris Bagley, we got David Hull, and we heard a lot of details about the line of sight. We saw largely from Chris Bagley, the initial observations, what happened, where people went. He went up onto the roof. He saw a line of sight and articulated that for us. We then made a little bit of a chart here to show how you could theoretically have a line of sight from a tall building if it's far enough away, which makes the shot more or less horizontal with the ground at about 6.1 degrees. Could be higher if Charlie was lower, the building's taller, 7 degrees, 8 degrees. But from the perspective of being covered by the tent, you can see that there very easily could be a window right into his neck, and he is seated wrong in that image. He was shot in the front, not in the back. So we talked about that. We heard various clips and testimony. We saw Erica Kirk was there. We saw Trump Jr. was there. Many others were there. We've got a new photo here from the New York Times. And the hearing was on another break as of just a few minutes ago. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll hit the highlights. We'll wrap up day 1 and then get into day 2. And the preliminary hearing is underway. And so we talked a lot about that today. Then, of course, Graham Platner was also now canceling key events. And the reason being is he had a damning story break against him. Another woman claiming that he's not very nice to women. And this one consensually careless, meaning he didn't really care at all about her consent and took advantage of her by force after entering her home without permission, which is, multiple felonies, I would imagine, up there in Maine. But he says, I didn't do it. He's just going to pause. He'll come on back. And the Democratic Party, or at least the people voting in this market, think that they're going to win. So it's interesting times we're living in. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. We also had a great members only stream this morning. We talked about Senator Mitch McConnell, who's in the hospital. Some people saying brain dead, if that is a real change in condition than what he was a couple months ago. But his wife fled over to China and did that like 3 days after he was in the hospital. I think she grabbed all the thumb drives, the hard drives, the laptops, the binders full of classified documents, got on an airplane, went over to China. We talked about that. We also talked about the new report that the illegal alien invasion is responsible for a 30% increase in home prices. Took a look at the document that was drafted. We've long speculated that. That's been our thesis here for a while. But what we then saw, math equations and data that confirm it's real. So a lot of people now talking about increasing the deportations, which I think would really rectify a lot of the problems in America. But we talked about that. And then lastly, Bill Pulte is firing a bunch of people, and that was a fun story too. We also had a CIA lawsuit that we covered this morning on the members only morning stream. And so thanks for joining and becoming a member either on YouTube or on Locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we'll see you tomorrow morning on the members only morning stream. But now let's take a look and see what you have to say about this. And then we'll see what tomorrow has in store for us. News is pretty light out there. We've got a bunch of updates here in the Tyler Robinson case, but elsewhere, pretty quiet. We've got Congress is out until next week. The Supreme Court no longer in session. And so we'll see what tomorrow has in store for us. Whoa, Rick D, man. Rick, good to see you back, man. We're going to have to connect. Rick D, apparently there was an arrest warrant signed on James Comey. Indictment, Comey charged with threatening the life of the president. Is that the 8647 one? Or is that a new one? Interesting. That's big news. Yeah, so we may have to come back on that one. Thank you, Rick D, man. It's good to see you, Rick. Glad to have you back. What's going on, John? Rob, I thought that lead detective was lead detective was mildly restarted at first. Then I realized he was British. I'd rather him be mildly retarded than British. Well, I think many of us would, yeah. Yeah, because, you know, could you imagine being British? I know. John, thank you for the great inappropriate comment for the R word. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, John. We appreciate that. No, he's British. Yeah. Interesting times. Thank you, John. Elk Plow, hey, spent the 4th at the longest running 4th of July parade in the country in Bristol, Rhode Island. Man, Elk Plow, thank you for that one. I hope that was amazing. It sounds awesome. Our parade here got canceled. We were going to go down and go have a parade in DC, but it got canceled because it was scorching hot and everybody was dying. People were dropping like flies all over the city. Good stuff. So, hey, thank you, Elk Plow. Yeah, we appreciate that. Hey, Viva, man, Viva rated the stream. What's up, Viva? Good to see you, Viva. I think we saw Viva on Megyn Kelly today. Huh? Pretty good there, Viva. Well done. Hopefully it was good. I didn't see the segment, but I saw you posted about it. So we love Viva. Shout out to our Viva friends. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. Thanks for sticking around. Indoctrination, what's going on? Another raid. Thank you, Indoctrination, for sending us a raid. We appreciate that. Oh, and I think Steve Baker was on with Viva today, which is great. Steve's amazing. I got to meet him last week, Steve Baker. We're going to set something up too. Hey, Shadow Fax is a horse. Man, what's up, Shadow Fax? I'll probably attend the trial tomorrow. Amazing. So 30 months as a member. You're out there in Utah, Shadow Fax is a horse. Awesome, my friend. Well, be safe. Have a good trial. I mean, it's going to be, you know, a historic trial. So that's pretty awesome that you're in close proximity to go check it out. And if you have any reports, man, share them our way. We're glad that you're there representing the Watcher fam, baby. Thanks for going out there, Shadow Fax. Hey, and thanks for being here for 30 months as a member. You're amazing. Cliff Meggs, apparently the nipple Nazi has suspended all future campaign events to reflect this is a cat is on the roof technique. Yeah, cat is on the roof. And how does that one go? I remember Scott Adams talked a lot about that. The cat is on the roof. And what was the takeaway? Yeah. There were two brothers, and one was going to take a vacation. So the brother says to the other brother, can you look after my cat while I'm on vacation? The other brother says, sure, no problem. A week later, brother comes back from vacation, says, how's the cat? Other brother says, oh, sorry, man, the cat's dead. The brother says, what? The other brother says, yeah, sorry, the cat died. Then the brother says, are you kidding me, man? You just sprung that on me? The other brother says, how should I have done it? The brother said, I don't know. Prepare me a little, tell me the cat was on the roof. And you walked out and saw it and it started sliding and you ran over it, but you didn't make it in time. Then you took the cat to the vet to try to save it. And you can say, I'm really sorry, but your cat passed away. That's the way you prepare somebody. The other brother says, oh, I got it. I understand it now. Yeah, so you don't say your cat's dead. You said, man, I came outside. You're not going to believe this. The cat was on the roof. Then the other brother changes the subject and says, how's mom? Then the other brother says, well, mom was on the roof. That's pretty funny. All right, so yeah, mom was on the roof. We love our mamas. They're going to live forever and be here with us forever. We love you, mama, Mama G. So hilarious, man, pretty hilarious. So the cat's on the roof. And then suddenly Graham Platner's campaign is going to be dead. Yeah, pretty funny. So, hey, Cliff Meggs, thank you for that. Hey, this old guy. Democrats are about as good at vetting their candidates as they are at vetting illegal aliens at the border. And how many excuses have they made for this dude over and over and over again? It's been constant. And I wonder if they'll still stand by him. Remember, many of them did. We saw even the Senator Ruby Gallego from Arizona. Oh, Swalwell's amazing. He's an honorable man. I'll always stand by him. Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden he's like, I have no idea who he is. Who are you talking about? Eric who? Who's that? Were you in the hotel room there, Ruben? Hey, this old guy. Thank you for that. Yeah, they're not good at either. Hey, Slim or Stubby, I think Platner is going to end up on Kalshi. He's going up on Kalshi because Ro Khanna pulled his endorsement. I mean, that is a definite plus in my book. Ro Khanna is one of the biggest fraudsters I think we've ever seen here. I mean, the guy is constantly lecturing people about rich people and like oligarchies and how we need to actually tax the rich, kind of a concept. And then I learned that apparently his kids have like golf courses that he put in their names. Like an 8-year-old child like owns a golf course, like for tax purposes. Like, what are you doing, man? The dude's shameless. And he has more stock transactions than I think than anybody else. And Ro Khanna then will go on CNN and he's like, we have to do something about all these rich people. You're like, you're rigging the whole system in favor of your family just to get fat and rich. Their contradictions are just so disgusting. But the fact that they can't see that, at least on our side, like our disgusting people, like actually like money. And they say, oh yeah, no, like it's capitalism. Like you can make some money, go get it. They don't say that money's bad while they're doing the exact opposite in total hypocrisy. Hey, Tim Jake, what's going on? Thank you, Tim Jake. There are some who call him Tim. Yeah, what's up, Tim? Says, hey, brought in 5 new membos. Grab the members only stream from this morning. It was a good one. Purple Road Hogify, welcome. Kimberly gifted a membo. Montrell Rather, we got Jordan Dickinson in the house and Be Livin', all coming in courtesy of Tim Jake. Thank you, Tim Jake, for bringing in 5 new membos. We'll see all of our membos in the morning. And we'll see you soon. And hey, psychological projectionist. Hey, in my opinion, probably best to criticize GP's politics now. Graham Platner's politics now. You mean versus his rape allegations? Well, we do criticize his politics as well because he's a borderline communist as far as we can tell. And does a lot of the same things that Ro Khanna does. But yeah, I mean, they LARP as like a party of the people. And then he, and like believes all women and cobbles together all these various constituencies and then apparently rapes them. So yeah, I think that both are absolutely fair game. The story today wasn't about his politics as much it was about forceful actions on a pelvis. So, hey, Jim tells you, we'll send a raid over to you, Jim. Amazing. And hey, since you're local now, Just John Doe, any chance you'll be actually attend any DC federal trials when a big one comes up? Yeah, I think so. So the one that we've been keeping our eye on is the Brian Cole Jr. case. And we actually went to we haven't talked about that case a whole lot here, but we actually went to one of the hearings for Brian Cole Jr., the alleged pipe bomber, when we were here back in January. We made a video about that. And I think that's a big one. I don't know that there's any other big criminal trials coming up in DC. Am I missing any? But yeah, I mean, yeah, we're here. So we want close proximity to those things. We went to his, I think, detention hearing, which was a pretty big one. Or it was it? I think it was his detention hearing. Yeah. Sometimes I forget what we cover here and whether I was there in person or here on the screen. But it was early. It was early in his charging. So that one I think would be a good one. Are there any other big ones in DC? What are you thinking about there on that one, Just John Doe? Let me know, man, what you guys want to cover. We can go cover for sure. Hey, and Ray K, what's going on? Much love from Australia. Ray K, 53 months, my man. That is a long time. Golly. We've been through a lot together, my man. It's like we're whole different people. I am. Mostly the same, but, older. Much love from Australia and to the longtime mods. Amazing for that. Thank you for that, Ray K. Yeah, thank you, Ray K. 53 months as a member. You're amazing. Man, awesome. Rick D. Hey, Rob, thanks. Good to be back. They released me this afternoon, so back home I found lots of prayers and messages. When I got back to my desk, thank you, everyone. I greatly appreciate it. Man, shout out, Rick. That's so good to hear. And the Rubos are saying, all glory to God, Rick D. We are so happy to see you. You are back. You have been in our prayers. We pray you are fully recovered and are living life to the fullest. May God bless you and keep you always. And the Rubos sent some very powerful prayers, Rick D. So we have an amazing fam here. Thank you guys for praying for our friend Rick. And the Rubos, thanks for following up on that. Sending them his way. Yeah, okay. And so Tyler Robinson, they just adjourned for the day. So it's almost like, what, 4 o'clock? Yeah, so we'll see if there's any other updates. We'll wrap that into day 2 recap as well. Yeah, hey, and Just John Doe, did you hear about the Brian Cole Jr. and the Apple Watch news that just broke this week? We did, yeah. 100% we did. I was talking to Steve Baker about it, actually. So I think we'll get him to come on. And he's excited to do that. We've also got some other ideas on we had some ideas on some other things that we could do together. We'll see if he wants to do it together. It's his story. So I said I didn't want to intrude, but I have this idea that I think would be very interesting. So we'll see if we can work something out. But yeah, he's doing great reporting on that, man. And they are not happy with him at all. And I've got my doubts about the whole story. Is it some autistic kid, or is it a Capitol Hill person who's now a CIA agent? It's like, which one of those things makes sense? Come on. Thank you, Just John Doe. Yeah, we went and saw him, and we went into court to see him, to see how he moved and stuff. I was like, I don't buy it, man. Just John Doe. But we'll see. We'll see. And a lot of people get mad at you. They get mad at you. Like, well, Cash said it's true. It's like, okay, well, Cash is, he's the FBI director, but there's a lot of depth to these organizations. And I think, we just got to follow the facts where they lead and use our logic and common sense. Rubos, good to see you. I'm P Picking Cute. Hey, says, since you're no longer a mere mortal, we peon and plugged in with the big guys. We're not, definitely not. Yeah, just being here doesn't make any of that happen. I mean, mostly the main benefit of being in DC is like we get to go to museums. Really, that's really the main benefit. Who do I need to talk to get answers about the questions that no one ever asks? I joke with you about that when you first moved there. I've used every method to try to communicate with people. I've tried Truth, Getter, X, email, communications. How in the living hell does someone like me get some answers on crap we'd like to know when none of the powers that be have the ability to never, ever ask? Well, it depends what you're looking for. You might need to sue somebody for a FOIA, under FOIA. Like, you got, what are you asking? I guess is the real question. Who are you trying to get answers from? But, proximity's good. I've got to meet a bunch of new people, but, you don't really get any answers from knowing people, as far as I know. But anyway, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe I just don't know anybody yet. But it's good stuff. We're having fun, and it's good to be here. And, it's been a beautiful time to be here because of the 250 and all of that stuff. Read the Bible. It's a great suggestion. Yeah, Jesus can answer a lot of those things for us. Hey, humble satellite boy. Yeah, I haven't been paying much attention to the Charlie Kirk trial. All the conspiracy theory podcasting has been a bit too much for me, so I've just been waiting for the trial to begin. Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I mean, I really agree with that. I think it's kind of a bummer. It's kind of muddied the water from like a real sober analysis on anything. And then when we just talk about the facts, it's like, oh, well, you are fed slop, or you're not fed slop. Oh, you think that there could be an alternative explanation? What are you, Candace Owens? Like, so we're just trying to look at the documents. And there is a thing called reasonable doubt. And the defense will try to make a bunch of it. And so we contemplate what that reasonable doubt might be. On the opposite side, we put on the prosecutor hat and we take a look. Well, here's what the evidence says. Here's what their arguments are going to be. And I thought that's what this was. Hearing that it's just a preliminary trial took me by surprise. Is this typical? Do cases like this take a while to get going? In Utah, they do. Yeah, in Utah, my understanding is, I'm not licensed there, in Utah, that a lot of felony charges go through preliminary hearings. A lot of other states don't. Like in Arizona, this dude would have been indicted by a grand jury. All of this would have happened behind closed doors, and we would have never seen any of it because it would have been a grand jury proceeding. In fact, most murder cases are like that. But Utah, to get a grand jury proceeding, it's like a very high bar. So most people go through the preliminary hearing process. You can waive that, of course, but Tyler Robinson did not do that. So yeah, this is a little bit, I would say, atypical in the grand scheme of criminal law, but in Utah, it's typical. In Utah, it's very normal. So do cases like this take a while to get going? This one definitely does. I mean, this is a capital case. It's a death penalty case. It's a case of national importance, and it's got a lot of eyeballs on it. This judge is being extremely meticulous. So it's going a little bit slow. As for the conspiracy theorists, where do Charlie's parents fit into all that? With them being there with Erica, does that give her any credibility against the theories, or are the Kirks in on the conspiracy too? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for them, but if I had to, play devil's advocate on that, I think that the argument would be they don't know. Like, what do they know? Like, they're just buying the official narrative. They're just saying, oh, well, the government said this, right? Like, why would they have any keen insight into anything? They would just say, oh, FBI said that, which the FBI didn't really have a lot of involvement in this at all. They delegated a lot of this down to the local federal government. But you would just say, well, they're just believing. Like, what do they know? They're just believing whatever the prosecutor told them or whatever the FBI told them. They're not doing their own investigation because they trust the process. So, in other words, there's no malfeasance there. They're just kind of passengers in the whole story, right? Is what I would guess. Now, I'm not up to speed on any of the Erica Kirk stuff. As far as I've not seen any evidence that she had any, direct involvement in his death or anything like that, which I don't even know if that's the argument that's out there. I really try to stay away from almost all of it because of the fact that we just want to look at the record. Like, what does the record say? A lot of what's going on out there to me feels like, kind of like high school. It's like, I was friends with Charlie. Oh no, I was friends with Charlie. No, I was even bigger friends with Charlie than you were. Well, Charlie said he didn't like you. Well, no, he didn't like you. It's like, what are we doing out here right now? Can we just talk about the case? Which is what we're doing here. So I can't control what everybody else is doing, but we can try to just look at the documents, look at the facts. And if you have an alternative theory, if you think I'm trying to regurgitate Fed slop or Israeli propaganda or whatever, let me know. We're not. We're just looking at the documents and trying to see what comes out and then reason through it. And as for conspiracy theorists, thank you for that. Yeah, and Woodship Bill, from what I read, that's how Utah does it. Yeah, that's how they do it. Anyways, walk it off. Great for Rick. Feel better. Amazing. Good to see you. Yeah, no mention of exploding pagers or microphones. If the defense comes out and they say it wasn't a bullet that the coroner pulled out, and that was deformed by the ballistics examiner, they said it's not a bullet, it's an exploding microphone, then we'll talk about that. We'll say, holy crap, that's a crazy theory. Wow. And we'll review it, and we'll see what their arguments are. Yeah, and we'll see what the evidence says, and we'll go through it. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll come out. They'll say, no, the pager, the microphone exploded, or it was another shooter or something. Yeah. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll talk about it. I'm not opposed to talking about it. If it's a good theory and it makes sense, we'll say, damn, maybe it was the microphone. But as far as we can see, we just got the ballistics report. By the way, the defense has the same opportunity to hire their own experts and present their own evidence, and they should come up with an alternative theory. They should have something to replace the government's theory. Otherwise, it's just you're wrong and we have no alternative. You need to have an alternative theory. Like, for example, the pipe bomb case is going to have an excellent alternative theory. It's not that Brian Cole Jr. did it. Normally a defense is, I didn't do that, but somebody else did it. Or I didn't do that, but something else happened. Like the DUI blood results are bad. Oh, how are they bad? Well, I don't know. It could have been a problem. Was it? Well, I don't know. Maybe it could have been. There's doubt about it. But with Brian Cole Jr., the alleged pipe bomber, he'll have the argument that it was the CIA. It was this person. I didn't do it. She did it. And so that's a great alternative thesis. And yeah, and I think the defense will probably, Mariana, turn it into a patsy argument. I would guess would be one of their better arguments. Like the guy who shot MLK, what's his name? Right. He like took a guilty plea and then recanted years later. So there was argument about coercion and other factors that led to that guilty plea. Or am I misremembering that? James Earl Ray, I think is the name. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what their arguments are. But it's all just speculation until you see what the arguments actually are. And it's kind of fun to speculate and to play with these things like puzzles, but you can really get off track pretty quickly. And if there's a thesis to it, like I think that either way, this is going to get a lot of answers as the court, as these hearings continue on. So we'll start to see more. And I would expect the defense, unless the defense attorneys are in on it too, are they also in on it? Like if they don't make these arguments, are they also bought off in some way, shape, or form? And what if we just, what if he takes a plea deal? Like, is that going to be satisfactory to anybody? I'm not sure. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. But we'll see. So, all right, we'll pause here. Dart gun. I don't think it was a dart gun. Yeah, I don't think it was a dart gun. But we definitely want to try to stick to the facts, because that's, I think, where we can really add value. And if, you're not interested in that, totally understand that. There's a lot of alternatives to that. But all right, so we'll pause here, my friends. It's been a beautiful stream. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for the great comments. Thanks for the fun. The Tyler Robinson case is going to be a doozy. No doubt about it. I'm P Picking Cute says, I've just got some questions on some policies, or people aren't even talking about doing it. Well, for those things, you got to talk to your representative. That's the beauty of representative republic, our system of government. Talk to your rep. Want to know if anyone is talking about or doing things behind the scenes, why some things aren't being done. Are they even thought of? Are they aware of certain things? Why aren't they talking about it? In a perfect world, one of you podcasters would dedicate an hour of your show to invite a rep or senator on and let us ask questions. That's a great idea. I wonder if I can find someone. Yeah, I wonder if I can find someone. I don't know. So who could do that? Who would answer questions about any of those things? It's a good idea. Or you run, just run. And then you take care of that. I'm P Picking Cute. Run for office, get on the debate stage, start bringing up these topics. Yeah. Yeah, I believe a lot of crazy conspiracy theories too. I mean, I believe a lot of things. I'm like, well, that's an interesting thesis. Maybe that's true. And maybe it could happen. So if there's evidence of some alternative thesis, but I also think that there's, it may be hard to believe that Tyler Robinson is the shooter, but even if you think it's hard to believe, it's still within the realm of possibility, because these, this contingent of the left is murderous. Like they shot another ICE agent in the neck, right? They're very animated against the people that were, they think that they're fighting. So yeah. Yeah, maybe it's not so much fun. Did I say it was fun? It's not really fun. It's, it's an important and serious topic. I was probably being a little bit facetious there. Hans, what's up? The denial of the SA is defamation. Yeah, and she should send preservation letters, as she does not have the Instagram messages. Yeah, exactly right. And she can sue him for $100 million, and Graham can pay out of pocket for $100 million. See the veil. Here's a question about the main candidate for senator situation. If he's truly innocent, would it make sense for his campaign to demand records of someone's deletion record if there were deletions during the years in question? And if so, how many? Don't have to keep the deleted messages, but would they not keep a record of how many posts a client deleted? I don't know. Yeah, maybe Graham can say, I never got those messages. She never sent me anything like that. She's making it up. Does he have those on record? He could just come out and say, she's a liar. I don't have anything. And I'll even go back and try to, get the logs from Facebook or whatever. Yeah. Hey, what's going on? King of Biltong. Turn up the flavor with Peri Peri Biltong. It's mild heat, over 50% protein, and big flavor to keep you going. Try the full Peri Peri range at BiltongUSA.com. Code Robert, and you'll save 10% off from King of Biltong. And hey, Jason Trades, man, thanks for being here for 25 months. Loved your outfit for the 4th. Mine was similar. Man, you must have looked amazing. And didn't you feel good too? You felt like you were just bursting with patriotism and like you could conquer anything. Almost like when Batman puts on the suit, he's going to go fight crime. We're going to go fight communists. I'm sure you looked amazing, Jason. Thanks for, supporting and representing your country. Good stuff. Yeah, no, it's not fun to talk about Charlie being killed. It's not what I intended to convey, if that's what we got. It's not, I wish Charlie were here, and I would much prefer to not ever be talking about this ever, about political assassinations, period, especially with Charlie, because he was a one-of-a-kind guy. So did not mean to convey that. It is important stuff, though, I think, to look at the record. We're trying to add some value, some sobriety to the conversation when doesn't seem to be a lot of that out there. So hopefully you come and join us as we do. Yeah. Because, this stuff has a tendency to spiral, and we don't want that to happen. We want the record to be clean. We want the record to be clear. If there's a thesis on either side, we'll analyze it. We'll unpack it here together. And we will do it to honor the record and to honor Charlie. So, yeah, thanks for understanding. Yeah, it's infuriating, man. I miss the guy. And, a lot of things were a lot better when Charlie was here. We had a lot more, I would say, unity in the party. But he was taken from us. We have to realize, why and how he was taken from us and make sure that we can, if we can, prevent that from happening again. So we'll be here, my friends, to continue to cover it. Thank you for joining us as we do. And we'll come back tomorrow. We'll get into it again. As we wrap it up, want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. Thank you to Muffin Rando. Thank you to Donut Mind Me. We got K Bean in the house. We got Neuro D. We got Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda. Let's take a look at what's happening over on X. And then we'll call it an evening. Who is joining us over there? We do have a couple of comments. What's happening? Hey, what's happening here? Yeah, okay. Hey, this is a great photo. That's a great photo. I'm going to add that to the mind map. Yeah, so if that's right there, those are the rounds there. Yeah, see that distance? It's a great photo. So I can add that to the chart. And yeah, you can see exactly, Charlie's neck would be right under the roof there. Terrible, terrible. Man, it's terrible. Yeah, and it's tough to talk about it because it's just so charged. Thank you for sharing that one. Very good image. We'll add that to the mind map, 100%. So that came over from Mitchell Croy. Man, thank you, Mitchell Croy, for that one. Very nice image there. And Rob says, here's the first prayer of the Continental Congress, man. ChristianCivicsTraining.org/prayer250 if you want to read it. Man, looks like a good one. Yeah, our founders were men of faith. They try to strip that away out of the story. Hey, what's going on? Neuro D, man, in the house. Thank you for sharing that one, Neuro D. That's our locals community watching thewatchers.locals.com. And that's your boy right there, which nobody wants to see. Hey, what's happening here? Hans, good to see you. See the Veil, good to see you on that one. Hey, Chris Kinsey, man, thank you, Chris, for the nice dono. Here's a conspiracy theory. Someone told me that you were in the theater when Lincoln got shot. I told them, no way. He was in the lobby buying popcorn. Go big or go home. That's an interesting one. So do you think Lincoln is still alive? Did they have popcorn in Ford Theater? I don't know. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to have to process that one. I think it went over my head. Someone told me that you were in the theater. Me, when Lincoln got shot, I told him no way, he was in the lobby buying popcorn. So I may have been the assassin. Is that what you're saying? I'm going to have to process that, Chris. But thank you for the very nice dono. Your boy's a little thick today in the head. Penelope, thank you for the dono, Chris. We appreciate you, my man. Hey, Penelope, it's not Miss Erica Kirk. It's Mrs. Erica Kirk. Come on, Judge. Did he say that, Miss? Do you guys get it? I don't get it, but help a brother out over here. So Penelope, it's not Miss Erica Kirk, it's Mrs. She's still married to Charlie. He's still with us. He's just on a higher plane, up in heaven with the rest of our loved ones, hanging out up there, looking down on us, saying, oh, you people down there, God's not up there scratching his head, as they say. He knows he knows what's going to happen, and he knows how it's all going to work out. So good stuff. All right, Penelope, thank you for that. Thanks for the reminder. We'll tell Judge Graff that tomorrow. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so now we'll pause here. Thanks for joining us. We're going to come back tomorrow. Members in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, if you care to join us. We'll have some other good stuff to attend to. Then we'll have another stream tomorrow. We'll follow back up on day 2 of the Charlie Kirk stuff and see what else is happening in the trial to hopefully learn more about what the evidence is that the state has and see what the evidence that will be presented from the defense looks like. And we'll assemble it all here together. Looking forward to having some more time with you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Once again, shout out to our amazing mods and meme smiths. Thank you for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. We'll come back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a great night. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together